Hi everyone, here's the Bookcomix once again, and one character in one of the stories in Raymond Carver's Cathedral, the story I'm talking about is called A Small Good Thing, and in my opinion it's probably the best story, my favorite story in the collection. She says, in a moment of bereavement, she says that it was unfair, that the only words that came out of her mouth were the sort of words used on TV shows, where people were stunned by violent or sudden deaths. She wanted her words to be her own. And that, in my opinion, is one of the most recognizable trends in the book and one of the most recognizable tensions behind it. The wish that what you are reading sounds nothing like the conventions of dialogue or plot or genre you find on TV and you find in formulaic narratives of any sorts. The idea, I think, in these short stories is that, to me, there's a tension in here to basically convey life and convey experience without referring to any type of imposed structure. In my recent review of Annihilation, I mentioned this idea, formulated by Umberto Eco, but also by countless scholars and pretty much a truism, that you always read books in light of any other book you've ever read, and that every type of narrative is formulaic up to a certain point, and follows structures. Otherwise you couldn't read fiction, you couldn't really understand any of it. But at the same time, Carver, within this context, tried to shed all types of influence, all types of constrictions and genre obligations, so that I could tell you, for instance, that his short stories read very much like a good example of minimalism, of this scarcity, economy of words, scarcity of detail, not really in descriptions, that's not really the point, more in the way the story is conveyed. These are stories where the old order to show, not tell is obeyed 100%. And these are stories where you do not really get how characters are feeling, so that sometimes some scenes may feel really off. They may feel quirky. You do not understand if during a conversation people are about to hit each other really, or they're about to kiss, or they're about to go have a drink. And most likely they're going to have a drink. People have lots of drinks in these stories. That's because Carver never tells you about the emotions of these people. You have to infer all of these things through the textual clues you get, through an exchange of glances between characters, through the way a character behaves, or through this story's inflection, and through all these types of things. One of the consequences of shedding all of those genre and stylistic obligations is that these stories fell in under no obligation of sorts, even when it comes to the plot. Many of these are plotless, I want to say. They are. Some of these actually have quite straightforward plots, and A Small Good Thing is probably the one with the most recognizable plot. It has something happens in the story, and the story sort of has a beginning and an ending, and even a sort of symmetry to it. But many of the other stories are not. Many of the other stories just capture a dinner party that was somewhat important for the characters who attended it. Other stories capture a bizarre encounter with a blind person, or that time the main character almost had an affair but then didn't. This is slice of life fiction if ever somebody wrote it. This is fiction that shows you the life of specific characters, usually lower middle class characters, dealing with a life that is frustrating and that is full of problems that have no clear solution, and that it's just dull and oppressing. And you understand the suffering of these characters and you can sympathize with them. These stories definitely have lots of heart, both when they deal with characters that are, you can sympathize with and you suffer with them, and when they deal with actually horrible people who treat their spouses horribly. At the same time, you recognize the way they behave, you see why they behave that way, you get some sort of insight, is what I want to say. It's not that you justify these people, of course not, they're horrible people, but you get an insight into the way humans behave. and that's Carver. I'm not a fan of this type of fiction, and I'm not saying this to be smart as it's my fault. I'd like to think I like all sorts of fiction, all genres, and that's still not true. I'm not sure, I'm hoping sometime in the future I will see the genius of this type of minimalism, of slice of life fiction, of literary fiction in the most literary terms possible, and I'll be able to enjoy these stories to the full extent. At the moment I'm only partially able to do that. It's definitely a matter of taste. I like my stories to feature maybe a monster or two and to have a bit more plot, and most notably I'm a sucker for telling. I like short stories and novels that begin with several pages of people telling you that they are going to tell you a story, and that probably the telling of the story will be their undoing, or that there are secret forces hidden within the pages you are going to read, and that they are going to curse you while you read them. Those types of things. I do not like showing all that much, if I have to be honest. But what I want to ask you is, in the comments, if you are a Carver fan, let me know, absolutely let me know, what do you take home when you read short stories such as this, when you read Carver's fiction? What do you think is the most enjoyable thing about the reading experience? Not the genius of it, you know, it's Carver, he's a canonical author, there's whole monographies written about him. I want to know from actual readers why, when you sit down and read a Carver book, what's the enjoyment of it. And once again, this does not want to be a video where I go, oh, Carver is overrated, because I don't think he is. I definitely see the genius, stylistically, technically. It's a video where I've read something that it's not my cup of tea, and I want to genuinely see why it's other people's cup of tea. In my comments in the past, I've talked about a similar thing when it comes to the fiction of Alice Munro, which is a writer that shares so much with Carver, as far as I've read Carver, which is only Cathedral, it's only this collection. Her stories too tend to be plotless, tend to focus on slices of life, on epiphanic sorts of moments, except when they do have a plot, and I like Munro's stories with a plot. For instance, hate ship, friendship, love ship, courtship, marriage is a short story I adore in a collection I do not much care for. Go crazy in the comments, let me know about other minimalist writers I should read, let me know about the rest of Carver's oeuvre. The rest of his books are Will You Please Be Quiet Please, What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. Are they very different? Am I to expect more of the same? Do let me know, let's get that discussion going. And in a second you'll find links on the screen to other of my videos, I don't know which ones, random videos, and I will see you in our next review. Thank you for watching this one, bye guys.